And I don't think he'll change, you know. He is committed of his own level of service, and that's abs that will remain. Recently, a small yet significant piece of news has surfaced. An off-hand remark from Sir Timothy Lawrence, the ever-loyal husband who quietly supports Princess Anne from behind the scenes. That seemingly casual comment, spoken in a warm and private moment, unexpectedly ignited public attention and elevated Anne to the role of the new pillar of the royal family. The public embraced her with admiration, and the media lavished her with endless praise. Yet that same wave of adoration struck a raw nerve in Queen Camilla, a woman consumed by her need to maintain status and cling to the limelight she fears losing. Behind closed doors, Camilla couldn't bear the thought of Anne surpassing her. She moved swiftly, planting seeds of suspicion, manipulating the press, and even fabricating a video that framed Sir Timothy as a man who accepted bribes. It wasn't a simple act of jealousy. It was a deliberate strike meant to disgrace Anne and shatter her family's reputation. But what Camilla failed to foresee was that her opponent wasn't just Anne, the calm and reserved sister, but also Zara, the fiery daughter, determined to reveal the truth. On one side loomed deceit and manipulation. On the other stood courage and an unyielding sense of honor. Will Camilla succeed in crushing her rival, or will she be the one undone when the truth comes to light? And does Zara possess the strength to shift the balance in this perilous power struggle? The answers await in the drama about to unfold. On September 27, 2025, a blanket of gray clouds hovered over Liverpool as a cool breeze swept across the grounds of Merchant Taylor's School. The year 6 students were brimming with anticipation for a long-awaited visit. The low hum of rotor blades soon grew louder, and all eyes turned upward as the royal family's deep red AW-139 helicopter descended gracefully onto the field. From it stepped Princess Anne, dressed in a modest navy suit with her ever-composed husband, Sir Timothy Lawrence, by her side. The couple walked together through the cheering crowd of children, creating a scene both simple and heartwarming. Anne greeted everyone with a wave while Timothy exchanged a firm handshake with the headmaster. Then, in a spontaneous gesture, Anne said with a smile, "Let the children explore the helicopter. Today is their day." Excited laughter erupted as the students rushed toward the aircraft, guided by the pilot, who explained its controls and even let a few of them sit in the cockpit. The playground filled with joy, and soon clips of the moment spread rapidly across social media captioned, "A royal treat for Year 6." The press quickly hailed Anne as a symbol of humility and the most hardworking member of the royal family. Later that afternoon, during the 175th anniversary of the Liverpool Chamber of Commerce, held at Hill Dickinson Stadium, and delivered a brief but thoughtful address about the royal family's place in modern society. That evening, during a private dinner following the event, a guest playfully asked Timothy, "Who do you think is the real pillar of the royal family?" Without hesitation, he looked at Anne and replied, "If the royal family ever needs a pillar after Charles, it's Anne." The remark, though made in justice, was captured by a nearby microphone, and within hours it dominated headlines and social media feeds. The public celebrated Anne's grace and dedication, but the viral moment also ignited quiet turmoil behind palace walls. At Clarence House, Queen Camilla sat in the dim glow of her study, listening as Timothy's words replayed on the news. Her jaw tightened, her hands balled into fists, and a cold glint flickered in her eyes. "A pillar is she," Camilla muttered under her breath. "Let's see how long that pillar stands once I'm through." The steady ticking of the clock merged with her darkening silhouette, an ominous prelude to the storm about to break across the media and the monarchy alike. In the days following the Liverpool visit, all of England still basked in the glow of Princess Anne and Sir Timothy, stepping off that deep red AW139 helicopter, modest, approachable, and surrounded by joyful school children. Major newspapers splashed photos of Anne's radiant smile, calling her the woman preserving the royal family's true values. While Timothy was celebrated as the devoted husband who quietly stood behind her across the nation, from peaceful suburbs to crowded cities, people remembered September 27th as a day that rekindled the bond between the monarchy and its people. Yet, only a few days later, that admiration began to sour, as though an unseen force had started to twist the story's course. It began subtly with small but cutting headlines in obscure outlets: royal helicopter extravagance or public outreach. One sneering editorial read questioning the flight's expenses and contrasting them with the country's economic woes. Soon harsher pieces followed. Is Princess Anne trying to outshine Queen Camilla? A malicious rumor spread rapidly across social media. The same images that once embodied warmth and sincerity were now recontextualized with cruel captions, turning Anne's kindness into grandstanding, and Timothy's affectionate remark into a jab at the Queen. What had been a moment of unity had become the center of public dispute. Talk shows erupted with speculation. Is Anne genuinely connecting with the people or challenging Camilla's image? Timothy's words, once seen as loving support, were twisted into an act of disrespect. Public sentiment shifted. Admiration gave way to cynicism, and behind that shift, one person quietly smiled. Camilla, watching from her study as her carefully orchestrated media campaign began to take effect. But for Camilla, simply turning the tide of opinion wasn't enough. She wanted devastation, a blow so severe that Anne's entire family would bend under its weight. Not long after, her most vicious plan was set in motion. One Wednesday morning, a short, grainy video appeared on social media. Sir Timothy in a dimly lit room, shaking hands with an unfamiliar businessman and accepting a thick envelope. The footage was blurry, the lighting poor, but the face was unmistakable. The caption read, "This is the royal family's so-called pillar." A man on the take within hours. The clip had been shared hundreds of thousands of times, jumping from social networks to international headlines. Princess Anne's husband, accused of bribery, a new crisis for the royal family, screamed the front pages. Television panels debated endlessly, some insisting it was undeniable proof, others suggesting a setup, but the faint voices of doubt were drowned out by a tidal wave of outrage. At home, Anne remained calm, refusing to respond with emotion. She said nothing, only watched quietly as the firestorm raged. Timothy, however, was undone. He sat before the screen for hours, staring at the doctored footage, his once steady hands trembling. He knew he was innocent, but the truth no longer mattered. One careless comment, he murmured bitterly, "And now our whole family is dragged through the dirt." The following days were suffocatingly heavy. The tension seeped into every corner of the house. Dinner tables, once filled with laughter, now echoed with silence. The clinking of silver, were the only sound in the room. Timothy kept his head bowed, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Anne sat poised and unreadable, her restraint the final barrier holding the family together. But across the table, her daughter Zara, the Olympic equestrian, the family's pride, felt her fury ignite. It wasn't directed at her father, but at whoever had orchestrated this cruel deception. At those reveling in her family's humiliation, she gripped her knife so tightly her knuckles turned white, then slammed it down, the metallic clang slicing through the silence. Timothy flinched, but no one spoke. Zara swallowed her rage and made a silent vow. She would not let this stand. While Anne's household endured the quiet agony, Camilla struck again, this time in public. During a formal ceremony at the palace, she made her move. Dressed in a gleaming emerald gown, Camilla swept confidently through the hall and stopped before Anne, who sat composed among the guests. With a thin, icy smile, she said loud enough for all to hear, "Just one careless word and your whole family becomes a joke. Do you still think the people see you as a pillar? You're clinging to what's long gone. One foolish husband and the mighty pillar crumbles." The room froze. Some guests turned away. Others gasped behind their hands. Anne remained motionless, her posture regal, her eyes fixed coldly on Camilla. A stare that could unnerve the bravest soul. But Camilla, basking in her perceived triumph, held her smirk. She thought she had silenced Anne once, and for all, publicly humiliated her beyond recovery. What she didn't know was that from the edge of the hall, Zara had heard every word. The insults burned in her ears. She saw her father, an honorable naval officer, smeared as corrupt. She saw her mother, one of the monarchy's strongest women, dismissed as living off the past. And she saw Camilla, so brazen, so cruel, trample their dignity in front of everyone. Zara's fists tightened, her nails digging into her palms. The fury inside her broke free. She knew that if her mother remained silent, the truth would vanish. If her father bowed his head, injustice would become their legacy. She took a breath, steady and fierce, and whispered to herself, "If mother won't speak, I will. If father can't stand tall, then I will." After Camilla's cutting words at the ceremony, Zara found herself unable to sleep. The Queen's taunt, "Just one foolish word from your husband is enough to bring down your entire family," echoed relentlessly in her mind. The anger that burned within her soon turned into resolve. She would protect her parents and uncover the truth behind the smear. That same night, Zara powered on her laptop and reached out to trusted friends in the media and tech fields. A small team of technicians agreed to help examine the infamous video of Sir Timothy. In a dimly lit workspace on the outskirts of London, they pored over every frame, pointing out irregular lighting and inconsistent sound. The conclusion was unmistakable. The footage had been tampered with. The word manipulated appeared boldly across the analysis screen, and Zara's fury deepened into unshakable determination. Soon after, a journalist sent her an explosive audio recording. In it, Camilla's unmistakable voice commanded coldly, "Release the clip. Let the entire nation see Timothy for what he is, a pathetic fraud." The evidence was irrefutable. The entire plot traced back to Camilla herself. Zara's hands trembled with rage as she listened, vowing that the lies would no longer stand unchallenged. That evening, she walked into her mother's study, carrying a folder thick with documents and evidence. Setting it down on the desk, she said firmly, "Mom, I found everything. We can't stay silent anymore." Anne looked up at her daughter, her eyes calm but heavy with understanding. "Do you realize," she asked quietly, "that once this comes out, our entire family will be drawn into the storm?" Zara's voice quivered, yet her resolve was clear. "I know, but I can't bear to see Dad called corrupt, or you mocked in public. If we say nothing, the lies win." Anne reached out, resting a steady hand on her daughter's shoulder. Her voice, though gentle, carried the weight of steel. "The truth is like fire. It can cleanse, but it can also destroy. Are you prepared for that?" Zara nodded without hesitation. "I'll face the world myself if I have to. They'll see who Camilla really is." Mother and daughter embraced, their determination burning brighter than fear. Together, they began to plan their counterstrike. Zara reached out to trusted journalists and compiled the verified evidence. Every detail was arranged with precision, leaving Camilla no room to twist the narrative. The storm was gathering, but this time they would not run from it. They would face it head-on. That morning, heavy gray clouds loomed over London, but the entire city's attention was fixed on the Grand Hall, where hundreds of international journalists had gathered. Long before the event began, security barricades were erected. News vans filled the streets, and the air buzzed with tense anticipation. Everyone sensed that this would be more than a simple statement. It could be a turning point, one that might redefine the royal family's image. Inside, the atmosphere was stifling. Cameras stood in tight rows, flashes primed, microphones aligned precisely toward the podium. Faces were taut with focus as live screens scrolled, breaking banners. British royal family holds emergency press conference. Across the nation, people glued themselves to their televisions and phones, torn between belief and doubt after the scandal surrounding Sir Timothy's alleged bribe. Half convinced of his guilt, half suspecting foul play. The murmurs stopped abruptly as the doors swung open. All cameras turned at once. The hall lit up with blinding flashes. The crowd gasped. No one had expected this. Walking through the doorway were Princess Anne and her daughter Zara. The press had assumed a mild clarification from a palace spokesperson, not the personal appearance of Anne herself, and certainly not Zara, the Olympic equestrian, now thrust into a political firestorm. The two women climbed the podium side by side, their presence wordlessly proclaiming unity. The royal family's past and future standing together. In the front row, Sir Timothy sat upright, his face drawn, but his eyes gleaming with quiet pride. Silence fell. Anne stepped to the microphone, her bearing composed and regal. Her voice, slow, deliberate, steady, cut through the tension like chiseled stone. "Honor cannot be bought," she said. "My family does not need rumors to be seen, but we need truth to protect the very values that define the royal family." Every camera froze on her. The tapping of keyboards stopped. For a moment, time itself seemed suspended. Then all eyes turned to Zara. She inhaled deeply, her thoughts flashing back to the humiliations of the past days. Her father's bowed head, her mother's quiet endurance, and Camilla's cruel taunts. Her hands trembled slightly, but her gaze was fierce. Zara stepped forward and began to unveil the truth. Behind her, the large screen flickered to life. The technical team's forensic analysis appeared. Frames revealing mismatched lighting, distorted sound waves, and clear splice markers. The evidence was irrefutable. The video was doctored. The hall erupted in low murmurs, but Zara wasn't finished. Holding up a small USB drive, her voice shook with emotion yet rang with conviction. "This," she said, "is an audio recording from the team that created the fake clip." Moments later, Camilla's unmistakable voice filled the speakers. "Strike at Timothy to humiliate Anne. Take down Anne and the throne will be mine." The room exploded. Gasps, shouts, camera flashes, chaos. Reporters surged forward, voices rising in disbelief. "Unthinkable, a setup. This changes everything." The revelation shattered the hall's composure, confirming what many had only dared to suspect. Within minutes, the outside world reacted. News outlets across the globe pushed urgent bulletins. Shocking revelation. Queen Camilla behind fake video scandal. Social media ignited. Hashtags #JusticeForeign and Camilla the Exposed, surging to global trends within half an hour. Public opinion flipped almost instantly. Apologies flooded in. Messages of support overwhelmed royal channels, and Anne's family was recast from suspect to victim of a calculated betrayal. Amid the chaos, a quiet yet powerful moment emerged. Sir Timothy rose from his seat, walked calmly to the stage, and placed one hand on Anne's shoulder, the other clasping Zura's. Lifting his head high, he said in a deep, steady voice, "We are not here to defeat anyone. We are here to restore the truth, and with it, our dignity." The words, simple yet profound, moved the hall to tears. Then came the applause, deafening, unending, like a collective verdict against deceit and a tribute to integrity. Anne turned towards Zara, her eyes glistening with emotion and pride. She understood that her daughter had done something few royals had ever dared: face the truth without fear. She reached for Zara's hand, and their shared glance spoke what no words could. This moment had changed everything. But elsewhere, in a darkened room at Clarence House, the scene was starkly different. Queen Camilla sat motionless before a large television screen broadcasting the conference live. Her face contorted, her lips quivering with fury. She slammed her hand against the armrest, but it was useless. The sound of applause from the hall thundered through the speakers like blows to her chest. In her bloodshot eyes there was no longer triumph, only panic and defeat. And as the broadcast faded, one final line echoed in the narrator's voice, a grim note of destiny. From the moment the truth was spoken, Camilla had already taken her first step out of the palace. After the press conference revealed the truth, Clarence House, Camilla's residence, fell into a suffocating stillness. Unlike anything before, the once busy corridors, where attendants' footsteps echoed daily, were now eerily quiet. Curtains remained tightly drawn, and dim golden light pulled weakly over the cold marble floors. The silence wasn't just from the chaos raging outside. It stemmed from the collapse within. Camilla was utterly alone. Those who had once served her now avoided her eyes. If they accidentally crossed her path, they bowed quickly and slipped away, as though afraid to be tainted by her downfall. Her phone rang constantly, but never with comfort. Only relentless reporters demanding statements or former acquaintances calling to quietly distance themselves. Worst of all, Charles, the man she had counted on as her last pillar, remained completely silent. He neither defended her in public nor sent her a private word. That silence, heavy and deliberate, hurt more deeply than any public denunciation. Outside the palace walls, outrage consumed the nation. Newspapers screamed with biting headlines, "Camilla orchestrates cruel plot," "Queen shatters her own image." Even media outlets once sympathetic to her turned against her. The footage of the press conference flooded every platform, replayed millions of times. People didn't just discuss Anne's calm speech or Zara's brave revelation. They replayed the moment Timothy stood and clasped his wife's and daughter's hands. From small-town pubs to polished offices in London, one name echoed everywhere: Zara. She became the embodiment of royal integrity. A viral comment summed it up perfectly: "Zara is brave like her mother and fearless like her grandfather, Philip." The line spread across the nation as a public motto, a sharp contrast to Camilla's silence. Eventually, unable to endure the mounting pressure, Camilla was forced to make one final public appearance. But the woman who emerged from the royal car was no longer the proud queen who once commanded a room. Her face was drawn and pale, her makeup caked in vain attempts to mask exhaustion. As she stepped into the crowd, a storm of questions assaulted her from every side. "Do you deny the recording? Did you order the fake video?" Reporters shouted over one another, their words cutting like shards of glass. Protesters held signs reading "Camilla the liar." Each flash of the camera seemed to sear her skin. She tried to smile, but her lips barely moved. No answers came, only silence, which the press devoured instantly. That evening, the headlines declared the Queen's final moment of defeat. The photo of Camilla, head bowed amid a blinding sea of flashes, became an indelible image of disgrace. Meanwhile, Zara's name was celebrated around the world. The international press called her the voice of truth within the royal family. Schools, youth groups, and advocacy campaigns began adopting her words. The truth never bows as mods for integrity and courage. The iconic photograph of Zara holding hands with Anne and Timothy amid the flashing cameras became a symbol of unity and moral strength. Murals appeared across Britain. Posters filled city streets. Zara wasn't just hailed for exposing deceit. She was revered for confronting a force that had long cowed others into silence. Many compared her bravery to the legendary spirit of her ancestors. Under growing public pressure, King Charles could no longer stay silent. He summoned a private family meeting with only key members present. The room was dim, filled with the heavy air of reckoning. When Charles finally spoke, his voice was cold and final. Camilla would be stripped of her public duties and required to leave the palace. The words struck like a sentence long awaited. For Camilla, it meant the death of everything she had spent a lifetime building. The careful maneuvering, the ambition, the calculated rise to power. Prestige had always been her lifeblood, the thing she valued above all else. Now it had shattered completely, leaving her dignity in ruins before the entire world. The day she left Clarence House, no one came to see her off. The great wooden doors closed behind her with a thud that seemed to seal her fate. Only a few elderly servants stood at a distance, bowing faintly in pity, but saying nothing. Camilla walked slowly toward the waiting car, her movements heavy, her face pale from sleepless nights. She tried to stand tall to preserve a shred of the poise she once commanded, but her trembling lips betrayed her. Tears welled in her eyes, tears not of sorrow alone, but of anger, resentment, and the crushing awareness that her defeat was absolute. She paused before stepping inside, turning one last time toward the palace that had symbolized everything she had fought for. Power, recognition, triumph. It had once represented the height of her ambitions, the proof that she had conquered destiny itself. But now it stood only as a monument to her downfall. The grandeur that had once filled her with pride now mocked her with its silence. In that moment, she seemed to understand that her greatest enemy had never been Anne nor Zara. It was her own unchecked ambition that had devoured everything she loved. As Camilla disappeared from the public eye, a new dawn broke over the monarchy. At a small ceremony days later, Anne and Zara stood side by side before a cheering crowd. Their clasped hands reflected resilience and renewal. The applause was thunderous, echoing far beyond the hall and into the streets of London. No one spoke any more of the false video or Camilla's schemes, only of courage, truth, and moral strength. Zara had become a symbol, not because she held a title, but because she had dared to stand for what was right. The sight of her standing proudly beside her mother marked the rise of a new generation of integrity, one that no scandal could erase. And so, as the story closed, a question lingered for every viewer and reader alike. If you were in Anne, Timothy, and Zara's place, would you stay silent, or would you dare to stand for the truth? Because in the end, their story reminds us of one timeless truth. Integrity and courage can topple even the most immovable towers of power. Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.